principles. Remember, it's important to nourish autonomy and self-determination early on with your students and build a rapport with the students along with their families or guardians. Yes, it's very important to hear what the person has to say about their goals and where they want to go. You can't base everything off of a predestined life from, because what may have been appropriate 30 years ago may not be what the person today wants to do. So it's very important to make sure you are hearing from the students about their own interests, because not everybody's gonna want to wipe down tables or be in a hot seat this room. That's why it's important to nurse and let them know that you are there, that you are there to listen to the students' perspectives as well, because you're never too young or too old to begin a new goal. Now, yes, I have always had goals in my family at a young age, knew that they wanted me to be able to achieve goals that were very important to me. Now, almost 25 years ago, I am from South Florida, and I was a safety patrol. I was determined to be, even before the 4th grade, because I had friends who were safety patrols, and a big tradition in the sunny state of Florida is to go up to Washington, D.C. in February when it's the cold months. At first, they did not want to let me be a safety patrol or go to Washington, D.C. While my mom was very supportive, they were wanting to come up with reasons. Well, I had done the work to be a safety patrol. I showed up for my shifts every single day. Now, the purpose of this trip was to go without the parents. So at first, they let my mom go. No offense, but I did. But I knew and they knew, and she knew that I wanted to have the same experience as my non-disabled peers. So thankfully, one of my former special ed teachers was one of the chaperones there. And I still talk with many of my safety patrol friends with to this day, and that is all of us up there. And I am very glad we were able to go before 9/11 of that year, and before a lot of what's happened in the last couple of years happened. I mean, I do love Washington, D.C., and I am a big history person. But it's good to sort of look back. Up there is with my friend Dees Roberts. His mom was the original school psychologist who diagnosed me and gave my family hope by talking about early intervention and how my mom would have to be an advocate for me at a very young age. So it was neat meeting him and then to connect with Dr. Roberts 2 years ago when I was actually giving the keynote in South Carolina. And I was also given experiences to try out other work experiences. Add a Bring Your Child to Work Day, a family friend who was a nurse practitioner at the Durham VA Medical Center. She loved her own kids, but she knew she wanted to bring me to Bring Your Kid to Work Day. And while the other kids were spinning balls up in the air, or you could still weren't interested if they knew I wanted to be there and were impressed because I was able to become a volunteer there. Then for a couple of summers before going off to college, and that set the bar for me to realize I wanted to do more than wiping tables, and I knew that I wanted to be able to advance to more office work. So having the experiences to also volunteer all the way in Durham from Raleigh also helped a lot with nursing, self-determination from a very young age. So you can always recommend to your students and families to look into volunteer opportunities to explore what else is out there, and for networking purposes. Yes, I know we all know that IEP is an individualized education plan. Some great resources is definitely Roads to Learning and Earning that Dr. Kelly from Western started, and thinkcollege.net. Because I am now mid-30s, and because of how the times were, going to college was never talked about at the time, since inclusive higher ed was sort of more of thinking of it more as a thought. For a while, I was in a compensatory education program. While for some students it would work, it really didn't work for me because it was more limiting and not a lot of opportunities for growth. I stayed there for a while, but then I was given good reason to leave because unfortunately I had a rough year of some surgeries that would mean having to stay inside and really think a lot. So I definitely knew that I wanted to try something different afterwards. And so that's how my mom and I, after doing research, were able to learn about thinkcollege.net, which I've also been featured on many times. And so always remember that you can recommend websites like thinkcollege.net and look into volunteer experiences, or looking into community causes, which I am very glad that just recently that it has become more of a new concept of community causes also partnering with IPSEs and creating more meaningful opportunities. Yeah, hard to believe coming up on the 19th will be 13 years when I moved in, because to Western Carolina, and actually this is where a great story starts. Yes, 13 years ago, I first met Principal Savannah Sparzaluzza because she was a volunteer and support with the UP program. She was my suite mate. She was right across the hall, and she was there in case I needed any help. Sometimes we'd go out to the local Walmart in Cullowhee. We'd have a lot of fun hanging out in the university center, and she introduced me to some of her sorority sisters and friends. So we always had a lot of fun hanging out. And what was great is that this was a full inclusive experience. It wasn't at all like the traditional segregated program. It was going to be part of the campus, and I did live in a dorm all 4 years. Yeah, because all 4 semesters I was there. And since my mom was living in Raleigh, that was 5 hours, one time Savannah brought me back where we were able to meet in the Winston-Salem area after I completed my first semester at college. So remember, meaningful experiences can start at any point in time. I am very glad I was able to meet Savannah, and that we were able to create a lot of memories, and are still in contact to this day. And I've always had an interest in advocacy and policy, so it was great going to take classes in criminal justice and political science, since I've always loved advocacy work, since I've always loved policy and advocacy. And that is where my interest in speaking and policy began, was by being asked to speak in classrooms. And two of my former mentors who are retired now, they were doing research and got me into UNC. They had met me and saw my experiences, and they then recommended other opportunities after I graduated. And before I came to WCU, I didn't know, but the participants could not walk at the regular graduation. But one night, and Savannah was one of them, they advocated that we should be able to walk across the stage, and class of 13 was the first class to walk at the regular graduation. And when I graduated, one of my former special ed teachers, he was at the time at the very beginning of his teaching career in '96. That's how long ago it was. Probably when most of you were kids. Just like I was, but he came all the way from Orlando, Florida, and was in Winston-Salem to watch me walk at graduation. So remember, the relationships that you create with your students and families can go a long ways. I still talk with many people that helped me a long time ago, down from South Florida and other places. And I still love getting to go back to the Catamount campus and see many of my friends there today who I got to go to WCU with. And I am glad, Savannah, I can say we were there when it was still a secret, because it's definitely grown a lot more now than what it was in 2012 and 2014. Yes, disability is not a bad word, and it should not have to mean limited experiences. While at WCU, it was all about the person's choice. Instead of it only being in limited spaces, I got to choose working in the grant office, and I have always loved photography, so it was very cool getting to take photos of out-of-date logos, and I got to be a student entourage. That was very cool, and to learn more about the campus. Great deal of Savannah's gone to see my growth since when I was there, then really when I was at the beginning of my professional advocacy career. So you never know what those little experiences can lead to when you take the time to work with the students. Yes, inclusion definitely does mean getting to live fully without limitations and have experiences like going to college. Yes, that was one of my first big articles that I wrote for. And college on that was belonging on campus, because we all want to feel like we're part of the community rather than feeling like, oh, you're just the other. It's good to feel like you can fully be a part of campus life and know that and know that you're able to receive anything without the disability label having to hold you back. No, it's good to know that you can go to college and be able to choose your educational and career path versus what it would have been more than 50 years ago, where it would have been social workshops. Yes, I definitely knew after college that I wanted to continue on with professional speaking and advocacy. So it has been cool getting to be a part of local and national organizations. Yes, I've almost actually been with UNC for 4 years as an employee. So it has been great as a disability advocate and speaker and to be at the Carolina Institute for Developmental Disabilities. We're not exactly on the main part of UNC, which is nice. We're more in Carrboro, but I am very glad I got to be a LEND trainee, and hard to believe that was all 10 years ago. But that was a great opener to learn more about professional speaking and advocacy. So I'm grateful that I've been able to achieve, and that's what we all want, is to be able to have a life of our own, Susan, rather than feeling limited. It has been great working more on projects with work together and seeing. And always what you teachers do is very important for helping your students. And I love the theme of mental health and of not being burned out. Well, thank you. It's great to see dedicated people in the special education population, because we do not want there to be we don't want you to be burned out than you already are. You are all doing important work, and it should not have to mean sacrificing your mental health or not being able to have a break. So it's always great to fill your cup with good coffee or tea, as coffee is always a good beverage to have in the mornings. In my different leadership trainings I've gone to do with UNC and nationally, it has been very cool where I've gone to be part of the conversation. What no one wants is to feel like, oh, you're supposed to token to look good. No. It's been great then to be a part of LEND and see it more where there's actual professionals like myself with disabilities who are part of Forefront, but we want there to be many more leaders, because the disability community is not going anywhere, and we need to keep expanding leadership opportunities and find ways to help build up future leaders and to learn to unapologetically be able to speak up about their advocacy, their needs, and goals, as we do not want to see the Americans with Disabilities Act or the IDEA go away. No, we want it to continue to grow and thrive for many years to come. Yes, I am a person with autism where I am able to remember dates and details. I definitely do love history, and Savannah can definitely tell you how I do remember dates and details. That definitely from a long time ago. I definitely did send her a message remembering her middle name. That she told me a long time ago. So that is always, but not all people with autism are always going to be able to remember certain dates or details are not always going to be like Rain Man or Dr. Sean Murphy from The Good Doctor. Not all disabilities are always going to be the same. Yes, it has been great, definitely after calls in my life now, getting to see Saints with triangle disability and autism services. When I first began, it was the arc of the triangle, and they merged where it used to be the arc of Lake, the arc of Orange, and the arc of Durham. But I'm glad that we are more of a partnership with other ARC organizations, because sustainability is definitely important, and it has been great to travel across the country and even online, getting to speak. And the furthest I have been has been Nevada. Yes, that was one of the last conferences I went to, just before everything happened with COVID, and the only time I've been to Arizona has been the airport. But that would be cool to see, and I do love Arizona tea, even though it's not exactly from there. Yes, just last year, a new concept and word that I love. I definitely do like the theme of peer-to-peer support work. It's great to have professionals along the way to help. So thank you all for what you have already done, people to help me. But it's also good to have a parent or family member with experiences who understands and can really help. And can really help the person know that it's okay to speak up about your goals or ask for questions. As I have done a lot of work with the North Carolina Developmental Disabilities Council, a new concept they started 5 years ago was the peer-to-peer support training, which I did and completed. And of course, I'm glad they're trying to find ways to make it become more of a career. And it goes into the concept of lived experiences. Yes, it's good to have lived experiences as seeing it more as a professional where you can be like an advocate, but not always have to necessarily report everything. But it also helps make the transition and talking with professionals more definitely easier for both sides, as you're kind of helping to find, as you are helping to find more and more solutions. And I'm glad that we are trying to find ways to build more of a partnership rather than it being an us versus them approach, as it can seem sometimes. Yes, almost 4 years ago, after doing policy and advocacy, through my idol and friend, Liz Weintraub, the host of Tuesdays with Liz. She is a cool policy nerd too, just like I am. After listening to her, I was then questioning why there really were not a lot of details out there or stories being told from people like myself about self-determination, talking about policy, and really exceeding expectations. With help and support from my friend Anna, that is how Exceeding Expectations with Kenneth Kelty started. And we are on Insta and Spotify, which we will be rebranded soon, and some raw episodes and new ones will be coming out soon, as I'm glad to be learning more about Riverside. But as I was getting new to podcasting, I was then told to apply for a self-advocacy resource and technical assistance fellowship. That is how I became familiar with Meet the Need, and it was exciting then to work with the Waiting Room podcast where I'm the host of too. And we're hoping to make some more reels that will definitely be exciting. But as I was new to realizing about the innovations waiver was, you should encourage your students and families to get on the list as soon as possible if they're not already, and advocate, because adult services is different and we do not want more people to fall off the cliff after they get out of high school. So it was cool getting to learn more about the waiver services and really issues that are going on in the state of North Carolina. Anyone can join, and you can always ask me to come and speak to classrooms or schools, as I can do it remote or come in person, which is always nice to get to travel and speak. Yes, I definitely do hope to definitely have a book published, as it's been in the work, but always there's life and time in. But it will be cool to hopefully get a book published, and I definitely do hope to do more work with definitely podcasting, blogging, and really help with continuing on with more grassroots organizations, as that is very important. I mean, it's something I hope to get started or not. Yeah, definitely. I'd like to thank you all for being here, and thank you, Sorton, and the Savannah, and the Principal Savannah, for recommending me and inviting me to come out and speak. Please feel free to contact me. Please feel free to contact me and recommend my podcast when you think would be of interest. I do come from a family of educators, so education was important to me, and I did have family members who were principals and professionals in the schools who helped my mom and helped me in South Florida with getting the services that were needed. My mom's not afraid to be an advocate, and even if it drove the professionals crazy, but be willing to work and continue helping out your students as much as possible. Keep exceeding your students' expectations and keep being the caring people you are and protect your mental health. Thank you.